Mike, we're here at Lake Thoreau and outside of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Tell us what's going on here.
So this is a longleaf pine stand that's been fire suppressed for at least 25, maybe 30 years. And if you look over in this direction, you can see you've got your classic mid-story of red maple and some oaks and sweet gums and some things, some loblolly pines, things that aren't very fire tolerant, moving in and forming this mid canopy with a real thick understory of shrubs and not a lot of herbaceous stuff. Over on this side of the fence, we've introduced piney woods cows, and you can see pretty much most things that they can reach in their browse height, they eat. There's a few things they won't eat, gallberry for instance, but they'll come in here and they'll clear this up. You can see there's a lot more sunlight hitting this forest floor. This forest now is more ready to be restored and start moving back towards this savanna type system than this is. The other thing is this, a fire in this particular forest would be dangerous. We've got fuel ladders extending 30 feet up into the canopy. The cattle eliminate that bottom fuel ladder, so a fire that goes through here will be much more controllable. If you're trying to introduce fire in a wildland urban interface, we're kind of suggesting that maybe run the cows through first, reduce the fuel load, and you'll have a much more safer, manageable prescribed fire.
Awesome. So once you run that ground fire through, now how about the needles that have accumulated? Are they significant enough or thick enough to where they still would cause you to have a more intense fire than what you would prefer?
Well, maybe. So that's an excellent question. So when you do have a very extensive layer of needles, you'll get a buildup of duff, and those roots, those pine roots, can move up into that duff. So you do have to be careful with that first fire that you don't get that duff layer too hot, because you can scorch some fine roots on these older trees and actually cause some damage to even some of these 100-year-old pine trees. But if you just run a nice, this is kind of we would recommend a dormant season fire to this, a much more calm and well managed fire.
Even though a growing season fire might have been historically one of the more prevalent fire types.
And then once you kind of get that fuel load back to at a manageable level and start eliminating some of this mid-story canopy, then we would suggest reintroducing that growing season fire.
Tell us real quick, just as kind of finishing up here, in terms of reducing that mid-story canopy, what techniques do you guys use, and then how do you then begin to see the response from the herbaceous layer, which you essentially don't have one yet?
Right. So right now you've got the makings for an herbaceous layer. We've got a clear spot, and we've got some sunlight starting to reach the forest floor. But honestly, our experience is that just frequent fire every other year, within 4 or 5 years, this mid-story, all these black cherries, these sweet gums, your smaller loblolly pines, they're going to be gone. Okay. Just with frequent prescribed fire.
They're going to die standing.
They're going to die standing and fall over. Yeah.
And okay, and then all right, that's pretty awesome.
And then it takes off. Then once all that sunlight opens up and hits the floor, your herbaceous layer will start moving in from the seed bank and whatever rootstocks are still.
Now, if you guys want to expedite the process of getting those hardwoods out, have y'all tried any of that here? And
we haven't. Other people have done that. I mean, you can actually most of these hardwoods, like I said, fire's only been out of here 25 years, so some of these are still thin enough you could just knock them down with a forestry mulcher if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Or you could do some thinning in that as well.
Wow.
But we found fire is the cheapest and easiest way to get rid of that mid-story.
Well, this sure is great, man. So hopefully, now are y'all going to continue to drive this or allow this to progress toward what we just walked out over that?
No, probably not. And the reason why is we've got this center sort of set up in areas where we have some long-term research, and this is an area that is designated as a long-term fire suppressed system.
I got you.
And so even though you're just like, I want to get in there and burn that, and we want to have at least one area where we don't do that, so we can kind of compare to the areas where we.
And this one right here is not getting any fire, no thinning, no grazing.
I don't even like to look at that one.
I don't either. I mean, just imagine, and let's just take the crowd through here, and just for fun. I mean, nobody wants to walk through this, and yet, and there's almost nothing in there. I mean, this is one of the most biologically impoverished landscapes you could probably ask for.
You might, if you were to raise your arms and walk through here, you might get 10 species of of woody shrubs. And that's really just because we're down here in the bottom of the coastal plain. You got a lot of
and half of it would be greenbrier, which nobody likes anyway.
hey, the cows love greenbrier.
Do they? Yeah, I guess so. Well, hey, we appreciate your time, Mike and Carl, and this has really been eye-opening, and I'm glad I came down here. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome.